Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Marketing Through a Pandemic, Strategies for Your Business to Thrive During the Pandemic and Economic Crisis. I'm Lisa Figatner, Director of Member Programs and Services for the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. With us today is Vicki Hart of Paradigm Marketing and Design. A few housekeeping matters before we get started. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be emailed to you tomorrow along with the PowerPoint for today's presentation, so be on the lookout for those. If you just can't wait, you can download them right now from the Handouts tab. But I'd also like to draw your attention to the Questions tab. Rachel would be happy to take your questions, so get them in as they come to you via the Questions chat box. And one last thing, it's definitely been getting better, but we have been noticing people still having audio-visual issues with GoToWebinar platform as they struggle to keep up the extra video conferencing going on right now. So if you have any trouble viewing or hearing during this presentation, don't forget that you'll automatically be receiving a recording probably within 24 to 48 hours. So if you have to sign out and watch the recording, you won't miss a thing. So now, without further ado, Vicki, take us away.
Hi, thank you so much, Lisa. Good day, friends. My name is Vicki Hart. I'm the Director of Client Engagement with Paradigm Marketing and Design. We are a web, branding, and strategy marketing agency. And over the past 10 years, we have helped hundreds of businesses make millions of dollars in revenue. We are an award-winning agency, and for the past 6 years, we have won design awards for our work. In addition to almost everyone on our team has won an award for their area of expertise. So we are a full service 360 agency. So from strategy through execution, we are your digital partner. So without further ado, I am excited to introduce to you our founder and president, Rachel Durkin. Rachel, take it away.
Thank you, Vicki. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today. And today I want to talk with you about what we've seen with our clients and some strategies that we've taken to successfully market through the crisis that we're all going through right now. And in order to do that, to start the presentation, I looked back in my initial research to determine what happened in 2008, because that's the closest that's the last major recession we had. And in 2008, 170,000 small businesses closed in the United States, and small businesses account for 53% of the U.S. workforce. So we have quite a high unemployment rate, not as high it is now, but it was high. And through that crisis, it forced a lot of innovation. So if you look back, it transitioned to what we are now calling the quote-unquote gig economy, where workers were doing 1099 statuses, creating their own consulting arrangements, and around that new economic pattern came big business. So things like Airbnb and Uber popped up to facilitate the environment for the gig worker. And that's also when Amazon kind of shifted its model and really took off as well. So the reason I'm sharing that with you is because through every crisis, innovation arises, and it's not, and we always will recover. The economy always recovers, the world always recovers, but it recovers, and what comes out of that is a very different environment. And so as we're thinking through with our clients how to pivot, how to address what's coming, we want to consider that there is going to be a new opportunity in a new world, and we want to figure out how we can leverage that. So there's 3 things that are going to help a business float when this crisis hit back in March. First are, environmental factors. There's some things we can control, there's some things we can't. If you were a restaurant and having to close your doors, that was quite a challenge. The other thing is cash reserves. How long can you float, and how long do you have to pivot and bring in new cash and new revenue streams before you run out of your reserves? And then the last is innovation and the application and the evolution of that innovation. So how are you adjusting your strategy in order to thrive and continue your revenue streams coming in? So before I get into some case studies, I want to share with you a story. It's called the Stocksdale Paradox. If anybody's ever read the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, I highly recommend it. He talks about James Stocksdale. James Stocksdale was a former vice president candidate who, during the Vietnam War, was taken prisoner and held captive for 7 years. He was the highest ranking naval officer in the POW camps. And during that time, he was tortured, he was beaten, his leg was broken 7 times. And yet he still persevered, and he became a leader to the other prisoners and even led an uprising at one point. And in the book, the author asked him, what was it that kept you going and kept the other prisoners going? And he said, you must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of the current reality, whatever they might be. And he said that you would assume that the prisoners who survived it, who kept their spirits up, were the optimists. But in reality, they were the ones that said, oh, we'll be out by Christmas, and Christmas would come and Christmas would go. And then they'd say, oh, we'll be out by Easter, and Easter would come and Easter would go. And then Thanksgiving, and then Christmas again. And it was those people, he said, that died of a broken heart. It was the cynics, I shouldn't say holy cynics, but it was people who had cynicism in them and understood that this was the circumstances that they had to face now, who survived the crisis. And if you look back at the 2008 recession, a McGraw-Hill research study found that out of 600 companies, they measured what companies were successful and what were not during the 2008, coming out of the 2008 recession. And they found that companies that marketed through the recession showed a 275% growth, and companies that did not showed a 19% growth. So the story here is that the circumstance, I think now that we're in July, initially we all thought, oh, well, this will end in a month, this will end in a couple months, we'll all go back to normal. This is the new world for the foreseeable future. And so the question is, how do you identify the opportunities in marketing and in operations and new revenue streams in order to thrive? And so what I've been telling my clients is that the game has changed. We got very good at playing checkers, and all of a sudden the world flipped, and now we're playing a new board game. Half of us don't know what board game we're even playing, or that we're even playing a new board game. The other half have figured it out, but they don't know the rules. And so as quickly as you can accept the circumstances and look for opportunity, the more I'm seeing our clients thrive and increase their revenue drastically in those cases. So what are the two things that are driving revenue growth? The first I'm seeing is looking at new audiences and looking at new opportunities. So some companies are dying right now and others are being born. And the mindset that I'm seeing in our clients, from the leadership, is what is making a change in how we grow. When this started, it was March. By mid-March, in 2 weeks, we lost 40% of our revenue. I was drinking a lot of wine that week. It was to a point where we were going to have to start considering layoffs, because one more major hit, we weren't going to be able to. We were going to be under. We were going to be in the red that month. And so in those 2 weeks, I decided that we were breaking even. I could afford to keep people on, but they didn't have much to do. And so, being a marketing agency, I said, from now on, if you're not busy, you're marketing for Paradigm. And we doubled down on marketing. I put more money into marketing. I put more time into marketing. 4 weeks later, we had regained almost all of our revenue. And now we're in July, and we are up from where we were before the pandemic, I would say about 30%. So because we were able to leverage the opportunities we saw in the marketplace, and we moved very fast, we were able to recover. And I'm going to share some other case studies with you on how that happened. But the two major things you have to consider are there new audiences to consider, and what are the new opportunities to consider? So from an audience standpoint, all of our clients in distribution, in retail, they were not doing well. They didn't have the revenue to continue to pay us. However, we pivoted our audience target very quickly, and we found audiences in prospects in telecom, in medical device, in pharma, in clinical work, that saw an opportunity and needed a marketing partner in order to achieve their goals. And so by shifting our target audience very quickly, we were able to continue our sales strategy and pick up new business. The other is new opportunities. So a great example of this is during I sit on a lot of CEO calls and I listen in on a lot of different mastermind groups. And what I heard around the time the PPP loan was getting delivered was that companies were bringing back their employees because they wanted to get the loan forgiven, but they didn't have anything for them to do. And so Paradigm, normally being a consulting company and doing a lot of work for our clients, we decided to start doing training and consulting and training our clients' employees on how to leverage their new skills in order to effectively market for their companies. And by shifting our focus slightly, you know, we could deliver that service. It was a different deliverable. It's not necessarily our core service. We were able to quickly bring in additional revenue and provide value and hopefully retain those clients and upsell them later when things start to even out a bit. So I want to share a few case studies with you. The first is a dress shop. So as you can imagine, when this happened, retail had to get closed down pretty quickly. And so anybody who's been married or any bride will know that you have to order your dress about 9 months in advance because it takes a very long time to come in and then get it altered. So people are still getting engaged. People are still planning to have weddings. And so at the time, there was nowhere for these brides to go to try on wedding dresses. And so this client of ours had a really good idea. They closed their doors, but they changed things a bit. And actually what you're going to find in all of these case studies was that these changes not only helped them with the current problem that we're facing, but it also solved bigger issues that they either knew they had or didn't know they had. So in retail, the margins are very tight. You have high overhead, you have the store, you have employees, you have people coming in and window shopping, and you have to pay people to be on the floor to do that. So there's no guarantee of the sale. When this occurred, they had to close their doors and they started doing a virtual shopping program. So somebody could do a $100 deposit and then a store employee would do virtual shopping with them around the store, and they would send them 5 to 10 dresses to try on at home. And then they would send them back or pick them up. This was really interesting because it did a couple of things. One, it elevated their opportunity in the current market because no other dress shops were doing that. Two, it opened them up to much larger audiences. So in retail, you're usually looking at maximum 25-mile radius of people who will drive to the retail store. I mean, that's even high, but for specialty clothing, that's about right. And so they had a limited target market. Now they can literally serve people nationwide. And in addition to that, they have a higher conversion rate. So when somebody comes to the store and gives the $100 deposit, the likelihood of them actually purchasing the dress is almost 100% because almost nobody's going to give the $100 deposit and then it goes towards the cost of the dress. Otherwise, they would lose their deposit. So their conversion rate went much higher, and their costs shifted from fixed cost to variable cost because now they only had to send in a sales associate when there was a confirmed client that was ready to buy. They didn't have to stay on the floor all day. They could spend an hour doing virtual shopping and then ship everything out. So it actually created better margins for them, opened up a new market, and positioned them appropriately in this current environment. So long term, I think they're going to keep this service. Even when the store opens back up, they're going to do the virtual shopping piece. They're going to be able to access bigger markets, and it created a new revenue stream for them. So that's an example of pivoting on your operations model. Another client we have is they do commercial HVAC repair and installation, and they serve very large buildings like hospitals, hotels, corporate centers, etc. One of the challenges that they had before the pandemic was a lack of skilled labor. So anybody in the trades is going to tell you that the skilled labor market is very tight. In fact, most of the time when we were supporting this client, we were spending it on how to recruit effectively. So before the pandemic, they had a program. It was almost like you could FaceTime somebody, and they would send a junior technician out. They would be able to do a diagnostics with this tool, and then they could FaceTime a senior technician to ask questions. When this happened, the client called me. He's very smart, and he said, instead of sending the junior technician out, I'm going to just give the facility manager this tool, and then they'll be able to converse directly with the senior technician. Now, what's interesting about that is a couple things. One, again, they differentiated themselves very quickly in the COVID environment, and they had a message or what we call a hook to leverage. 2, they were able to cut back on the labor pool that they needed. So now they could get the same amount of work done and charge the same fee with less employees because the facility manager was doing more of the work. So this innovative strategy is actually supporting them. It's lowering their expenses and it's increasing their differentiating concepts. Another great company that we worked with is, or that we do work with, is a Telecom Communications company. Now, if he heard me say this, he would absolutely kill me. But for the purposes of this conversation, I'm going to compare them to somebody like Zoom or WebEx. So they do, among lots of other things, and they have, you know, the highest security standards. They work with a lot of big corporations, but they do virtual conferencing. Now, in marketing, we have something called friction, and I think Vicki can put a video in the chat about friction. But essentially, friction is the concept that people don't want to use people are reluctant to use new technologies or have to do too much. That's why we're all addicted to Amazon for all their faults, because you can push a button and have an impulse buy and it's on your door in a few days. So this concept of friction with technology is really a real problem. People, on average, when somebody uses a new technology platform, it's unlikely that they're going to switch unless there's a major reason, like a glitch in the technology or, you know, poor user experience. So this was a prime opportunity for my client to get a bigger share of the market share. And so he called me up and he said, this was like a day after things started shutting down. He moved very fast. He said, for the next 3 months or the duration of COVID, I'm going to offer our services for free to any company who wants to use it. And I was like, wow, that's very generous. Now, he also had just sold off part of his other company, so he had a decent amount of cash flow to sustain 3 months of growth without increased revenue. However, this was brilliant because, again, he had a messaging and a hook and an ask. And 2, he was able to capture new market share. And then once somebody's using this technology for 3 months, it's very unlikely that they're going to switch. So he was able to capture new market share and increase the number of subscribers to his service. And so the revenue skyrocketed 3 months later. Now, the thing to note about this, besides the brilliant move from an operation shift, is that he already had what I call our brand assets. So brand assets, so everybody talks about this concept of branding. It's like a magic unicorn, you know, we want to build our brand. On average, it takes 9 to 13 touches to engage your audience. But a touch can be a visit to your website, an email blast, whatever it might be. The goal in professional services, or really any marketing, but especially professional services, is to facilitate that touch process. Don't assume somebody's going to buy the second they meet up with you. You want to be able to facilitate that process over time. And so we want to build things like brand assets, which are your email list growth, your social media following, the number of hits that organically come to your website and why. So it's for thought leadership or tools or whatever it might be. Now, when this client came to me, we didn't have to spend a penny on advertising because we had been spending a lot of time building up their email following with their specific target audience. Now, and we had been nurturing that for a long time. Now, when the client came to me with a really good promotion, we were able to get it out with very little effort. I mean, we sent like 3 emails and they had a huge increase in signups. So there's a couple factors that supported this client's success here. One was the the hook or the operational pivot, but the other was that he had a marketing infrastructure in place. Now, if you don't have a marketing infrastructure in place, that's okay, because we've also worked with clients in order to help with that. So we have, when this happened, I don't really know what I was doing. I just started moving very quickly. And so I started kind of collecting a group of people who had like-minded or a similar target audience as me and a like-minded approach to how they do business. And so one very strong tool in your arsenal, especially if you don't have a strong marketing assets yet, is to execute co-marketing strategies. So the first thing I did was I reached out to 9 other people who had the same target audience as me, but were not in the same industry. So HR consultants, operation consultants, employment attorneys, different people who deliver this similar services that would be beneficial to my target audience. And because at the time, I had 10,000 people on my email list, but the other 9 people also had 10,000 people on their email list. And so we decided together to create, we did a whole day virtual summit, and we had to spend very little money because we had now between all of us 100,000 people to email to, which is a huge number. So by pooling our resources, and that's an extreme because all of the people that I chose had a strong marketing branding assets, but you can even choose somebody who has a 2,000 person email list and combine your efforts and increase it to 10,000. So there's an exponential growth. And so by creating this partnership, we were able to cross promote and leverage each other's branding assets in order to achieve our goals. In addition to that, we were able to pool our financial resources. So we wanted to add in, some publication, we wanted to buy some publication space and some email blasts that would normally cost $5,000. But when you split it up by 10 people, it was $500 a person, all for the same benefit. We were all building our list. We were all bringing people to the same summit. And we're all able to follow up with them in different ways as prospects. So considering co-marketing and strategic partnerships as part of your ongoing marketing plan, especially now, is really valuable. Again, for the cross promotion of everyone's brand assets, but then also for pooling resources like financial resources in order to buy advertising that you might not be able to afford otherwise. And then the last is considering different opportunities than what you would have done before. So we are a marketing agency, and we do marketing and web development, as Vicki said. We are not in the business of facilitating networking groups. However, we saw a need in the market within a couple weeks because everything was shut down, and historically our sales strategy has been to physically go out and network with people. I mean, we certainly use different marketing initiatives to bring in leads, but the bulk of our resources of our new business came in from, going out and shaking hands because we're in a professional service environment. When this happened, there was no virtual networking at the time to be had. And so very quickly, we were also all a little down. We weren't communicating with people that we normally communicate with, and we were all starving for some human interaction. And so Vicki and I came up with this concept of Table for 4, and we decided to host a virtual luncheon. We were going to do it, actually we started doing it twice a week. It became overwhelming, so now it's once a week, where essentially we invite people and then we split them up in small groups of 4, and they have lunch together virtually. And the first week we did it, minimal marketing, we got like 60 registrants. So like it took off out of the blue. We're like, wow, there's really something here to this. Now, this is not a revenue, we weren't making any money off of this. It was not producing, any direct value to the company. So I was very hesitant to keep it going because it was quite a bit of work to, take the registration, split everybody up, facilitate the Zoom interaction, etc. However, to Vicki's urging, we kept doing it. And over time, this program has produced a significant amount of revenue for us because one, we bring in, a couple things happen. We were seen as a solution to a problem that a lot of people were having, even though it's not the solution that we normally sell. We were seen kind of as a leader in the environment. 2, we were able to leverage this as like a gift or a free offering to people we met. So if we had a one-to-one with somebody, we could say, oh, why don't you join us for Table for 4? Normally it's $5, come as my guest. So this program became something that we could give away and an added value we could provide. It still was costing me a lot of money to execute. So I started looking again for strategic partnerships. We brought in, a company that does virtual systems, and they started running the program for us. We joined partnerships with the BIA, and they started cross-marketing it with us for networking opportunities. So now this program is every Monday at noon, and you can register. There's actually a code for NJBIA, so you can get in for free, and you can network with other like-minded individuals. We've started getting people, we had a sales meeting with somebody from India yesterday because they came through this program. So it's opened up our world by accident by facilitating this networking opportunity. The other interesting thing it did was it allowed us to create additional value. So normally, a publication, so let's say you want to do an email blast to like NJ Biz, like a major publication with 70,000 followers. A blast like that's going to cost $1,500. the return on it is, when you're promoting a professional service organization or really anything besides like a widget, a low price, product, the odds of you getting a direct conversion when you send an email out like that are rather low. However, if you send an email like that out to come to my webinar, and then after the webinar, I'm going to follow up with you, the likelihood of a conversion is much higher. Now, but it's still very expensive for a very long-term return on investment if you even get one, and it takes a long time to track. What we accidentally found out was if we promoted Table for Four through these publications, which got a lot of exposure, it was giving us great brand awareness, and it was building our email list or our brand assets with new people and providing a value at the same time, but it was very expensive for something that was not a direct service that could create revenue. So we started offering sponsorship opportunities for it. If you want to give us, if you want to be a $300 sponsor, you can sponsor Table for Four for the whole month. You can get access to the email list, and you'll be on all of you'll be able to present or be mentioned at all of the events. And you'll also be included in all the publication outreaches and advertising we do. So if we can get 5 sponsors at $300, we now have the entire cost of advertising paid for. Paradigm doesn't have to pay for it. I'm providing value to sponsors. The sponsors are paying for that value. We are getting the brand awareness and the list growth, and the sponsor is getting value at a very low cost. So this is something that accidentally happened that is now not only paying for itself and increasing our brand awareness, and maybe could be a future revenue stream someday, I don't know, but also providing leads for us because we're having several meetings of people who have met us through Table for Four because of this. So what I want to encourage you with this case study is to think a little bit outside the box. So we're always thinking like direct sale, but maybe think 2 steps earlier. How do we engage and provide value and then pivot to the next touch to the direct sale? Okay. Okay. So what I want to say here is be the first to market and dominate it as fast as you can. What I'm finding is in the past, and maybe this is starting to taper off a bit, I'm not quite sure yet, but I'm just kind of trying to watch for the signs. But in the past, marketing is something that you want to stack. It's like a snowball effect. This month we've created a semi-automated marketing funnel, and a marketing funnel might look something like this. You're all in my marketing funnel right now, whether you like it or not. So essentially, you get marketed to come to this webinar. After this webinar, you're going to get an email follow-up. Hey, here's the download of the webinar. After that, you're going to get some sort of offer or some sort of way to engage, to collaborate. We offer 30-minute strategy sessions, and I'll tell you more about that and why we do it in a second. But then from there, you're engaging in the list, you're engaging on social media, and it's getting our prospects into a funnel that's allowing us to re-engage them over time. So when the time comes that they think they need a website or marketing advice, they think of us. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. It doesn't have to be the next day. It might be a year from now, but getting them in the funnel is the most important part. So in the past, the goal is to kind of layer these semi-automated marketing funnels. Maybe you do a webinar one month, maybe you do, a download tool, maybe you do something else the next month, and you want to stack them over time. So marketing is a very thoughtful process that has everything coincide with everything else and is layered on top of itself. So the more you do it, the more effectively you do it, and the longer you do it, the more successful it is. It's like a snowball effect. When COVID happened, everything kind of changed. We didn't have time to layer strategies. We didn't have time to plan 6 months ahead. In fact, all the plans that we wrote for our clients in January had to get thrown out, and we had to rewrite them in March with new campaigns, but we could only think 4 to 8 weeks out. And the reason for that is we don't know how the market's changing. We don't know what the government regulations are going to be. We don't know how people are going to react, when kids go back to school or not, for example. So what you have to consider here is moving quickly. So I'm a very methodical person, and I would always say, let's do it, let's test it, and then let's improve it. Now, just like I mentioned with Table for Four, just like I mentioned with my client, with the telecom client who called me up and said, I don't care, offer this service for free for 3 months. You have to pivot, you have to find the opportunity and move on it as quickly as you can. There is a messaging hook. People are paying attention more than they have before when you're talking about different services that relate to how you can help them in this crisis. So people, humans, we have a fight or flight response, right? We are, from our caveman days, that's why when the news is on and it's all bad news, we can't stop watching. It's why when there's an accident on the highway, we all rubberneck and we can't not look. Our brains are wired to focus on negative or dangerous things. So right now we are all a little bit more vigilant around anything health related, anything COVID related, anything economic related for success and health of a business. So because we're all a little nervous still. So if you can provide a value that is going to support your clients in that way and ease their mind, they are hyper focused to listening right now. So leveraging that message, that operation, or that audience is how you're going to be able to increase your revenue over time. So to recap, the top 3 things that I want to focus, that I want to leave you with are some takeaways. So continuing to cultivate your network, use strategic partnerships, use co-marketing opportunities and strategies in order to pool your resources, both financially and your brand assets. The second is conduct strategy sessions with business leaders. So that's, before I mentioned that, when I came up with the idea of the training services that we didn't usually provide at a high level before, but that we started providing around the time of the PPP loan. I got that idea because I sit in mastermind groups constantly. I listen to what other CEOs and business owners have to say in my industry and outside my industry. And I collaborate with them so that we can both help each other, but also so I can hear what's happening in the marketplace. We are going to offer a 30-minute strategy session with anybody who wants to do it. The reason I do that is twofold. One, I'd like to be able to provide value to other companies, but it benefits me also because hearing other, of course, we would never say anybody's name or anything like that, but hearing what other companies are struggling with, hearing what they're doing only improves what we're doing and allows us to apply that to our clients. But in those strategy sessions, we also want to hear what your challenges are and provide resources and case studies and examples and recommendations on how you can leverage different things or leverage different things happening in the environment in order to grow. And the last is balance short-term necessities with long-term growth potential. So, I mentioned that when this happened, our revenue was cut 40%, and I started marketing like crazy. We put so much more money into marketing than we normally do. The challenge with that is our revenue was down, and I was pulling from our cash reserves in order to pay for marketing. But I really felt strongly that in order to do that, in doing that, we would achieve quick, more rapid growth over the next 2 or 3 months, and we did, thank God. So consider that I've also worked with other clients that said, nope, we got to cut everything off. We're not working together. We have to save our reserves. We've got to lay people off right now. We're not even going to wait. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. By doing that, because they were scared of the short-term risks, they were hurting themselves in the long term. So all of the companies that I work with, that I saw that were doing layoffs, and I understand some is necessary, but some of these companies were doing it as a precaution. Anybody who was cutting back immediately, they did not grow at the same rate that the clients that I work with who doubled down on marketing have grown. Every single client I work with that doubled down on marketing and pushed ahead and pivoted as fast as they could and put money into it is significantly better off than where they were before the pandemic. Every client that I work with that cut costs and kind of like went into their hidey hole, it's like a fight or flight response, is still, maybe they're coming out of it, but they're still struggling pretty significantly. So, I'm not saying that you should put every penny you have into keeping the business moving in the short term, but consider the potential of a short-term push in order to achieve long-term growth. So if you're interested in a free strategy session, you can email us at info@paradigm-md.com. And at this time, I will take any questions. We also have other resources on our website. So if you want to register for Table for Four, if you want to download any of our other webinars, you can go to our website and do so. And there's some links here for you.
Rachel, that was terrific as always. So amazing job. We have a couple of questions. And let's see. First, actually, Bridget Daly asked if we're going to be sending out a recording. So just to reiterate, we will be sending out a recording of this. So please keep an eye on your email. And actually, I really appreciate this from Janice. She's like, thank you for the webinar. Are you offering internship opportunities and marketing positions? So, Rachel, I know you love this question because great talent is always on the menu at Paradigm. So do you want to address the positions we're looking for? And then we'll get into some of the nitty gritty positions.
If you go to our website and you go to careers, you can apply for different positions online there. There's instructions.
So Paradigm is always looking for great talent. So that's another strategy, little tip from Paradigm. Always be hiring.
Yeah.
And let's see, we have another question, if you just bear with me for 1 second. So as you're adjusting your strategies, how quickly do you have to adjust in order to achieve these goals?
So as I mentioned earlier, it really depends on what the opportunity is, but I'm seeing in this market that the faster you can adjust and move, the more successful you're going to be. So in the past, my team I was always very methodical, like, create the plan, test the plan, execute the plan. Now I'm figure out the strategy and move and test as you're going. And just because the environment's changing so rapidly, we used to write marketing plans minimum 6 to 8 weeks out. Like if you wanted to execute a campaign with us, we needed 6 to 8 weeks to plan and execute in order to make it successful. Now we're looking at 2 to 4 weeks, like turnaround as fast as we can because the environment's changing so rapidly.
Excellent. And we have a question from Farheen Chowdhury. I love the idea of partnerships. However, I don't know where to start. This is a great question. What is a good first step in considering your partnerships?
So there's a couple of things. You should make sure that your strategic partners have the same target audience as you. That's the most important. So for example, if we're serving business owners, we don't want another strategic partner who's serving financial advisors. It has to be the same target audience. That's the number one most important thing. The next thing that I look for, I also look for, common core values and, doing business in similar ways. That's very important to me. So like, integrity and quality of work and all that. So that's, I think that's very important in selecting a strategic partner because you guys are going to work together quite a bit. So you want to make sure you share the same values. But from a marketing standpoint, the other most important thing that I look for is what are their brand assets, or are they growing their brand assets? So do they have a strong email list? Do they have a strong social media following? Are they engaging regularly? The stronger their marketing mojo, the more benefit you will get out of being a partner with them.
Terrific. That was a great question and great answer. So you mentioned, this comes from Noah Mazzio, and you mentioned choosing to double down on marketing was a gamble. What would you have done if investing in marketing did not generate revenue?
So not every campaign you run is going to be a slam dunk. I've run a webinar funnel where I literally did 100 to 1. Like we spent $3,000 and we made 300,000. Like that was a good funnel. We've also done funnels where we spent a couple thousand and we got maybe broke even if we were lucky. You have to continuously test. Like I'm going to run that other funnel again. That got me 100 to 1 ROI, right? So you have to continuously test your funnels and focus on the ones that are working. I would love to chat with you. I'm happy to have a strategy session. The one marketing activity you did, or the marketing activities you did, I want to understand what they were, how they work together, and where they failed, because marketing has 3 areas. Well, there's more than 3, but I'm generalizing. 3 things we need to look at. We need to look at the target audience. Are we talking to the right people with the right revenue opportunities? 2 is messaging. Are we saying the right thing to the right audience in a way that's resonating with them? And that's very important. Most of our clients, when they come to us, that is the area they're missing. They are not, they don't have the right hook, they don't have the right message, they don't have the right positioning strategy. And then 3rd is the go-to-market. How are you going to market? That 3rd piece is the easiest to measure because you can measure data, statistics, hits, etc. The first 2 are a little more challenging and subjective, and so we'd have to look at that. So what I would do is I would diagnose what went wrong and why, and then I'd probably create a new strategy. I mean, as a marketing agency, I never stop. You know, not everything hits it out of the park every time, but you can always learn from what didn't work to make it work next time.
And if we have any more questions, I'm going to ask our last question that we have. Please put them in the question chat. This is actually a really important question, is how long does it take to execute a marketing campaign? And I think that's it seems like it happens quickly, but it doesn't.
Yeah. So a marketing campaign can vary. When this first happened, we ran a campaign immediately to our email list. So it's like a series of 3 drip campaigns that had like if then, like if they opened it, they got this email. If they didn't, that didn't. That was, you know, put together and executed in 2 weeks. A longer funnel, and that, now understand that the people we were engaging with there had known, trusted, and liked us already, and had been touched several times in other areas. They were already in our list. A campaign that's creating new opportunities and getting new people into your funnel, that can be something like 6 to 8 weeks, because you're creating multiple touches, and you can't touch somebody. You know, it's kind of like when you tell your kids something, you have to tell your kids, I don't know about you, I tell my kids the same thing 100 times, still won't get it. Hopefully when they grow up, it'll be ingrained in their brains. But you can't kind of touch somebody 100 times in the same day. You have to do it strategically over time. And so I would say somewhere between 4 and 8 weeks is a reasonable campaign timeline.
Excellent. Well, that was our last question. But before I hand it over to Lisa, I do want to let everyone know in the chat, I did put some information about Good to Great, which is a terrific book, which talks about the Stockdale paradox. I put some information in about our Path to Profit Summit that we did. That really was a great, actually, it's a great story of how to cross promote and really leverage your people who have the same target audiences, how to leverage their brand and their marketing assets. I put a link in for Table for 4 also, which we run every Monday from 12 to 1. And I put my email in there. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. It's vharte, H-A-R-T-E, at paradigm-md.com. And without further, I'll pass the baton to Lisa. Lisa?
Thanks. That was great. Thank you, Rachel and Vicki. Such great information. Very, very great. People, I'm sure, will take a lot away from this webinar today. So don't forget that all of you will be receiving a recording of today's webinar and the PowerPoint slides via email. And lastly, when you close out of this webinar, a survey will pop up on your screen that I hope you'll fill out so we can understand how best to provide you with the important information in webinar format during this time. So our next webinar, Employee Handbooks 2020, Modifications for COVID-19 Pandemic. That will take place tomorrow, July 30th at 11:30 a.m. So by all means, feel free to register for that on our website at njbia.org/webinars. So until next time, for Rachel and Vicki of Paradigm Marketing and Design, this is Lisa Figatner, thanking you for being with us today and wishing you a great day.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.